everyone, Helen here. How are you today? I hope you're okay. And I am just here today to give you a bit of an update on the crafting that I've been doing. I've got them all around me here to show you. Lots of little things. And I'm also going to take you out on a little walk at the end. So yeah, I've called it Cosy Hygge crafting today, and I'll explain a bit more about that later, but it's all just meant to be showing you my crafts at this time of the year and the things I've been enjoying making. And so I'll get straight into it then. So the first thing is that when I was in the process of doing my tidying of my craft room and looking at all of the books on my bookshelf here and deciding whether to keep them or not, one of the books there was this one here, Sue Stratford's Knitted Aviary, and I did knit some birds from this book a little while ago, and seeing it again made me want to knit some more. And as I am not doing any crochet at the moment, which I'm a bit sad about, but never mind, there's plenty of other things I can do because of my elbow and arm problem. I've just been choosing to do either very small knitting projects or sewing, hand sewing. So yeah, I thought these little birds, that'd be perfect, and I wanted to make some more of them. And it's a very special book to me, this, because in the dedication on the back page there are lots of names. It's dedicated to lots of names, and my name is there because when Sue Stratford first wanted to publish this book, she did one of those crowdfunding raising money to have the book published. So the very first edition of the book didn't look like this. It was thinner and it didn't have quite so much in it. And then obviously eventually she was published in this slightly bigger book. So yeah, very special book. And so the birds that I've got, the birds all around me that I've made so far from the book. And the birds that I made quite some time ago when I first got this book were these ones here. I made a blue tit and a house sparrow, there's a wren and a bullfinch and a blackbird, and I also made a robin, which I actually gave as a gift. I made it as part of a wreath and that was given as a gift. So I didn't have my robin, so that was one of the ones I wanted to knit for myself. And also at a slightly later date to those first birds, I made the pigeon, the wood pigeon here, who is actually called Winky and is part of another story, but there we go. I'll not go into that right now. So there was Winky the pigeon. So yeah, so the first one that I knitted just in the last 3 weeks or so was the robin, because I wanted to have a robin of my own. So yeah, here's the little robin. The robin isn't the easiest one in the book. I would say if you haven't made any of these birds before, then a good one to start off with would be the blackbird, because it's all one colour apart from the beak and feet. And so you just get the idea of all of the shaping, and it is all very, very well explained in the book. The only thing that I would like different in patterns, I like patterns that say row 1, row 2. I like them to number the rows, because then if I have a notebook beside me, then I can just write down the row numbers and tick them off as I go, whereas this one is always next row, next row, next row. So I could go through and number them, of course, but I would like it to be there. Anyway, apart from that, there are mostly very good photos explaining how to make these. And so obviously this robin one involves changing colour partway through rows, which it's set out really nicely in the book. in that she's actually got a table and says do this much in this colour, this much, and it's actually really clear. So it's not a problem at all. And if you're new to doing that kind of knitting, is it called intarsia? Intarsia or intarsia? I don't know how to pronounce it. As long as you twist your yarns around on the back of your work when you're changing colours, then it's not a problem at all. It's very easy to do. And the other thing you have to remember is that if you're doing, for example, this one, the robin, you might be doing a bit of white, a bit of red and a bit of white. And so then you have to have, in advance, you need to prepare 2 balls of the colour that you're doing on each side, rather than carrying your yarn across the back of the central colour, if that makes sense. I think the only thing that the book doesn't show so far that I've come across, that it doesn't show clearly in any photos is, although I may be wrong, I might just not have spotted the page where it shows you this, is that when you make the feet and legs, it says at one point when you've done the feet, you have to pick up 2 stitches at the back. And somebody did get in touch with me to say, I don't know how to do this. And so I made a leg and took photos. So you can see here just where the stitches are at the back. So if you're wanting to make these and you're not sure about the legs, then you can refer to these photos, or I'll quite happily send them to you. So yes, so there we go. I have my own very own little robin. So what else have I made? I have next made the starling, which was a very straightforward one to make, because obviously it's just all one colour, and the only thing that you might find a little bit of a problem is that you hold your yarn double with some sparkly thread. And so yeah, so sometimes if you're not used to doing that, and because it's not woolly, because it's thread, you have to be careful that you are always having the 2 strands, the thread and the wool. When I showed it to Phil, he thought it was just a blackbird, and I said, well, it's all sparkly, but I know what he means. A starling does sort of, it is quite iridescent, and it maybe 1 or 2 blues in it and things would be good in the pattern, but maybe that would just be complicating it more. Anyway, I think he's lovely little starling there. And then one of my favourite birds is the long-tailed tit. So I made a little long-tailed tit, who obviously has got a very long tail. And yeah, that was quite easy. And for the long-tailed tit, and actually, oh, did I show you the wren? The wren, you don't make legs, feet and legs, you just embroider little feet underneath. I suppose it keeps them the sized more like, like they're smaller than the other birds there, so it helps with that. So yeah, and this one a little bit more complicated. I think there's an error in the pattern for this one, because when you finish, you start at the back of the body and you finish at the head, and it didn't say to cast off, and obviously you do need to cast off. So anyway, apart from that, that was fine. And then I decided to knit another blackbird, because this is my first blackbird here, which actually, I don't know why I did this. When you put the eyes in the blackbird, it says to put a circle of yellow felt behind so that you kind of have a yellow ring around its eye, which it does have. Don't know why I didn't do that. So that was one reason why I wanted to do another blackbird. But the main reason that I wanted to do it again was that I wanted the blackbird to be more in proportion with the other birds. I mean, they're not meant to be really realistic birds, are they? But I just did think that was too small. So I knitted that with double knitting, like the other ones, double knitting wool. I think I used Stylecraft Special DK for all of them. And mostly I used 3mm needles. Actually, I didn't use Stylecraft DK for this one. I used Stylecraft Chunky, actually, because I wanted to make sure the wood pigeon was definitely bigger than the others. But yeah, so for the new blackbird, you'll see the size, quite a difference in the size. So for this one, instead of 3mm needles and DK yarn, I used 4mm needles and 2 strands of DK yarn held together, and that was partly because I wanted to make sure it was going to be bigger than this one, and partly because I wanted it to be a really nice tight fabric, because on the starling you can actually slightly see the white stuffing underneath, with it being black wool white stuffing, and I didn't really overstuff it too much. You do have to be extra careful when you've got a dark colour and you're stuffing things, but yeah, so this produced a really nice tight fabric. There's no way you can see the stuffing through that, and yeah, the size of it pleases me. Actually, it's quite a chubby little blackbird, but he's lovely. And of course I did do the yellow felt for the eyes, and that looks much better. It looks much more like a blackbird, so I am very pleased with him. So this will just have to be a baby one, I think, won't it? A little blackbird there. So one of the lovely things about this book is that it doesn't just have the birds in it. It has projects that you can do with the birds. So it's got some, it shows you how to make some wreaths to put the birds in. And oh, that reminds me, actually, I have actually done the seagull that's in here as well, because I made that as a wreath and gave that as a gift to somebody. And 2 of the things in the projects section I'd been wanting to make for ages, and as I was trying to do lots of hand sewing instead of crochet, I decided now's the time to do that. So the first one that I made was the nesting box, and here it is. Beautiful little nesting box. I didn't do the embroidery of flowers on here as it is in the book. I wasn't feeling like tackling that, so I decided to have 3 hearts instead of just the 1. I had to order some felt though, because it said you needed really thick felt, 3mm, and in fact this felt that I bought, handmade 100% wool felt, is, it said it was going to be 3 to 5mm thick, and that's perfect. It makes a nice pretty rigid structure, and I had a lovely time making that. I am so pleased with it. Now, you know, the birds can have a little place to nest. There wasn't anything difficult about it. I mean, after I've made my woodland house and all that little furniture, this was easy. But I don't think anybody would actually find this hard. It explained it really well in the book, and I think it did say just to glue the roof on, and I didn't want it just glued on. I wanted to make sure it was nice and strong, so I sewed it round those places there, and then I only glued the front part of the roof, and actually it stayed on quite nicely. And then the other thing I did was to add a little hanging loop there, so it could hang in the conservatory next to the big branch I've got hanging on the wall where all the birds live. So yeah, so that's that. And then the other little project that I really wanted to make was the hanging nest, which I've got here. And oh, I just think this is so lovely. I mean, you could actually probably put that out in the garden and a bird might nest in it. But I've actually I used Lettlopi 100% yarn, and I measured it before it went into the washing machine to felt, and it was actually the height of this book pretty much, before it went into the washing machine. And then I washed it at 40 centigrade, I think, and it shrunk down and felted, and it's become all fluffy and just like a real nest. Oh, I just love it so much. And in fact, I've put inside it, let's just take it out, a little nest that I made ages ago when I was doing some needle felting, when I was attempting that craft. And so this, I found, fits perfectly inside there. So it means that I can put a little bird in and they're actually sitting in a nest. Oh, so lovely. And so that's just added to my branch of birds in the conservatory. So there we go. So all of my bird knitting, I think that's all there is to tell you about those. So next, yes, so I said I've been trying to do a bit of sewing, a bit more sewing than previously, and I've been joining in with a challenge on YouTube set by Pamela of Ginger Cat Crochet, and she's got a lovely challenge going, which I did through 2024, and it was to give a prompt, and you could make anything at all that you were inspired to make from that prompt, and they're all to do with crime, books or films. So the current challenge, which you can join in with if you want, so I'll leave a link to Pamela's YouTube channel. The current prompt is the latest Wallace and Gromit film, Vengeance Most Foul. Well, I think I've got that right. And I think probably if it hadn't been for my painful elbow, I would have just crocheted one of the characters, but I decided to think of something else, and I thought it would be nice to do the gnome, one of the garden gnomes in the film, who are kind of robots that are supposed to help with the gardening, but I'll say no more in case you haven't seen the film. And so what I decided to do was make a felt project, a felt applique project, and I just used a picture that I got from from Google Images to create myself a pattern for the gnome, and it just used very small scraps of felt, and my main aim was to not have too much overlapping, because for a bookmark you don't want it to be too thick. So I tried very hard to cut out my pieces so that they kind of butted up to each other rather than overlapped. I think the only overlapping thing really is the belt and the tops of the boots and the little features on the face there. But otherwise, just really, really pleased with how that's turned out. I just did a whipped running stitch, I think it's called, around the edge. So I did it in green, but then I ripped round with some silver thread. So that's going to be winging its way off to a lovely relative of mine who was a big fan of Wallace and Gromit. So yes, I'll have to get that off in the post. So that's that, and some of the sewing I've been doing. I haven't got it all here, but I've just got back to making my Quilt-as-you-go project, which it began as me just for enjoyment's sake making a load of squares, well, not that many to begin with, and I didn't even know what I was going to do with them when I started it. But then I decided that the two of the cushions in the camper van would benefit from new cushion covers. So these squares are going to become cushion covers. I'm making 2 cushion covers, but they're going to be 2-sided ones. So there's going to be a different season of the year represented on each side of the cushion, so that in the van we can always have 2 seasons on show, maybe the one that we're in and the next one or whatever. So I'm currently doing spring. So I mean, it's kind of a long project, isn't it? And I don't have any particular deadline, but I've got to do 36 squares for each cushion cover, or for each face of the cushion. But I must remember to actually think it out properly before I get too carried away and then find that I don't know how I'm going to put it all together. So I must do that. I've learned a lot from doing my patchwork diary cover, that you need to do things in a certain order, and you do need to think things through carefully. Of course, these are squares, so I haven't got the problem that I had with not getting a straight edge, at least. So anyway, so I'm enjoying that, and that's a really lovely portable project, and I'll be taking that off with me soon because I'm going away again soon. So yeah, so I think the final crafty thing that I'm going to talk to you about today is the hygge box that I purchased recently from Lucy Locketland. As I saw this advertised on Instagram and instantly knew that it was something that I wanted to do. And I was absolutely delighted when my box came. You could choose between knitting and crochet, and thankfully I chose knitting because I can knit at the moment, but I'm just doing it for like short amounts of time. So I'm trying not to knit for more than about 15 or 20 minutes at a time. And so I'm very, very glad that I chose a knitting project. I chose a hat project, and it was just a delight really to open this box and then reading the kind of philosophy behind the box on a little leaflet here. Lucy said, "It occurred to me recently that there is a tendency to associate all the cosy, knitty fun parts of winter with the period before Christmas. Then, as soon as the festive season is over, we seem to just endure the real winter months of January and February." Obviously, we're talking about those of us living in the Northern Hemisphere, and even March, as we desperately wait for the first signs of spring. The romanticised imagery of log fires, hot drinks, thick socks and candlelight never seemed to be applied to these post-Christmas months. So I decided to look for ways we could embrace winter and use our creativity to make it happy and cosy right up to the end. This isn't a new idea, and the true experts are the Scandinavians with their famous concept of hygge, described by the Cambridge Dictionary as a Danish word for a quality of coziness equals feeling warm, comfortable and safe, that comes from doing simple things such as lighting candles, baking, or spending time at home with your family. So my hygge-knit boxes are designed to provide you with some of those key elements: warmth, simple knitting and candlelight. So that's just perfect. It just, as you know, it would resonate with me from, you'll know if you've watched other podcasts that I've done this year, all about January and all those things to do with getting through winter in a positive way. So I opened this box and found some absolutely gorgeous yarn. I do love boucle yarn and I hardly ever use it. And I just love the idea of this hat. So you knit a long tube basically, which is closed at each end, and then you'll push one end into the other so that you have a double thickness hat, and then you'll actually put the brim, fold it up to make a brim, so you'll have 4 layers of woolly goodness around your ears to keep you nice and warm. So I can't wait to be able to wear that when it's, when the winds are really cold. So I wound the yarn just into a ball just by hand. That is my preferred way. I like using my Swift for putting the skein of yarn on, but then I like doing it by hand. And somebody did ask me to show you how I wind a ball by hand. And the thing that my grandma and granddad taught me, because they were both knitters, when winding yarn, and I used to often wind yarn for them, was that you always have to put a couple of fingers in the way of the yarn. You wind around your fingers and then move them out, and then it means that the yarn is not pulling too tight, and so it relaxes into the ball there. So that's the way I do that. And then you knit the boucle held double with some mohair yarn, and then that just makes a lovely, it's going to be so warm to wear. I'm really enjoying that. The other thing in the box that came in the box was the most beautiful little candle holder and 2 sheets of beeswax for making into a candle, and a wick that's covered in wax. So I had a lot of fun making candles. I've never done that before. I learnt a lot while I was doing it. The instructions said to use a hairdryer to soften the beeswax before you rolled it up, and I cannot find my hairdryer anywhere. I don't use it anymore, but it wasn't in the place it should have been. I don't know what's happened to it. So I had to come up with another idea. My first idea didn't work, my second one did. But I'm just going to show you a little video now of how I made my candles. So there we are. I am just really pleased with my candles, and yeah, this one, it doesn't burn terribly well. This one has gone out in the time that I've been chatting to you. It looks beautiful though. And so just what a lovely idea to have some knitting and a candle. And I had been knitting, doing a bit of knitting while my candle was burning when I first made it. And yeah, so really lovely. So well done to Lucy from Lucy Locketland for coming up with such a wonderful idea. I think she has, I seem to remember she said on Instagram that she wasn't able to get any more of her base boucle yarn to dye anymore. So I'm not sure what she has in the way of kits left. But I think she will plan to do them again. I hope she does, because they are really, as I say, it's a super idea. So I think I've remembered everything to tell you. And so we're just going to finish off with a little walk. And this is a walk that I went on the 5th of January, which was the last time we had some snow. So apologies to any of you who are fed up with snow because you've had so much of it. But hopefully you don't mind just a little bit of a walk with me. And some of you who are suffering very hot temperatures at the moment might enjoy just thinking of being cool. And so I'll come back and say goodbye when we've been out for our walk. Righto then, I think that's it for today. I'll probably switch off my videoing and then find that I've forgotten to tell you something, but hopefully not. Next week you will definitely be able to see the first part of our camper van trip to East Anglia that we went on last October and November, and maybe after that there will be a craft room tour. I'm not quite sure yet because I'm waiting for my shelves to come, my 2 shelves for the knitted toys, and as soon as they're up then I'll be able to do a little craft room tour. And so yes, and yes, and I am going away in the camper van again very soon, so there'll be lots more to tell you about when I come back. But until I see you again, take great care of yourself and keep yourself nice and busy, hopefully not too busy, and I'll see you again ever so soon. Okay then, bye.